Thank you, and warm welcome to everybody from my side as well. And it's great to be here talking about the green transition and how we can use technology and making that happen. But let me first start also with congratulating the Professor Martin Green for his Millennium Technology Award that he has received as a pioneer and as a leader in the solar industry and in the field of solar and how we can use that technology. So well deserved. It's something who's passionate around the green transition, as I am as well, on making the world going electric in a more in a safe and smart and sustainable way is one of the topics I want to talk about. But let's go first also to looking about where we are today. And we have talked over the last 20 years about the risk of climate change, what may happen. And I think the last years have shown that those risks we have talked about is really happening. It's the drought we've seen on 3 continents this summer, followed by flooding, followed by hurricanes that was used to coming every 5 to 6, 7 years, which now happens every year. So it's a backdrop which is scary. And I hope you all share that same understanding as well, that the risk we talked about is happening, and therefore there is a time for change. And that is why we have to act now and cannot wait for the future to see if it gets better or if it gets worse. We cannot take that chance anymore. And how do we make that transition happening? It's very much about using technology, and one of them that I am in the midst of, and as we as ABB as a company is in the midst of, is the part of electrification. And I believe that one of the parts and one of the solutions to the challenges we face is that the world needs to go electric. And we are going electric, as we see that in the field of having more sustainable transportation, where diesel trains be replaced with electric. We are driving more electric cars, for example, in the transportation, but it's not happening only there. So as we move on, we have to continue implementing more of renewable energy, like solar, and what Professor Green has been in the forefront of over the last more than 30 years. But we also need to invest more in the resilience and the stability of the power grid, because power and the network has not just become of national interest, like what the development of this year. It's even become national security item. So more renewable energy, but also a stronger and more resilient power grid. But finally, it's also one thing that we have to act on, and that's energy efficiency. Energy efficiency is one of these, let's say, simplest way of also reducing and making us a more sustainable. I think you all know that we're saying that the cleanest energy is the one that has never been used. And that is why energy efficiency is so close to what I work with and also close to my heart. So energy efficiency is no longer just an option, it's a must. And the good news is that energy efficiency is where we have already today the technology at hand. We don't need to wait for another 20 years to make it happen. It's already available today. And we can do so by using that technology. And I want to give a very practical example of how we do it. It's the escalators that we all use in the daily life. And in the past, those were running 24/7. But then by using some more technology, of course, we install sensors so that the escalators they only use when they're needed. So sensors or digital technology could easily reduce the impact of how we use it. Do you know, for instance, today, that everything more or less that moves is with electric motion, and 40% of the world's electricity is used by and consumed into motion by electric motors. And here also the opportunity lies that we have now much better technology available than what we had in the past. We're calling here in the industry for different energy efficiency levels. In the past, we used what we call IE1, then we moved to IE2. Today, IE3, 4, 5, and even 6 is what we are talking about. But still, most motors around the world today is used on a very low level on 1 and 2. So if we would move up the stack and take the new technology available and using that and implementing and upgrading facilities around the world, we could save up to 10% of the whole world's electricity. So that's a big opportunity that if we use technology as its best. But back to those escalators, there are of course also different ways what we could do is to add steps and stairs. It will require a bit of different behavior, also a different mindset to use the steps. Some would say going back. But I also believe that we have to think also to challenge ourselves on how we use energy and how we work. It is a change of mindset that is needed, and we can do that by educating and talking to people about making better choices. But here, I think it takes too long time to educate the whole globe on what is the right way and the right decision to make. So we need also here to use governments, policymakers, regulators, putting legislation in place that is driving that right behavior. So that is what is needed to work together as in all, both across industries, and that governments and regulators challenge us in industries as well. I know at ABB we are up for this challenge to use technology to drive the development. And there are some good news here, that we are seeing some of this change already. I used the example of electric motors. Here, the European Union put in place last summer new legislation that made IE3, which was the third level of energy efficiency minimum standard. And next summer, we'll move to IE4. Then you can say, well, but European Union in Europe, we cannot save the world alone. And it's true. But somebody have to take the first step. Because what happens when EU made the step of making this a minimum energy efficiency policy, China followed suit. They have already implemented the same standard as Europe. Saudi Arabia, the Emirates is now the next step. We as a company and our industry is working, of course, to get this also implemented in India and in the US so that the whole world moving in the same direction and have the minimum standard, raising the bar so we can save the energy and be better. We see the same in buildings, working on decarbonization of buildings, again, a common minimum standards that needs to be put in place. This is how we can use technology to also still having and using market power and the market setup that we know is working, but also using the technology, setting those minimum standards so we are able to get to a better place. And I say that it's not a one-man show. This is not one party alone that can do it. That's why we all have to work together to make this happen. That means also everybody coming together from the industries, on the customer, on the user sides, and also policymakers. And the only way is that we work together to make this happen. And I'm happy to see that that's kind of my firm belief is that electrification and that the world is going electric is one of the cornerstones and one of the things that can help us for a more sustainable future. So I hope you all join me in that statement that this is one part of the solution to a big problem we face. So let's electrify the world in a safe, smart, and a sustainable way, and we need to do it together. Thank you.